Minnesota should not scare you, but this is a team that does not execute and turns the ball over. Minnesota is going to give you an opportunity. This is not a team that is burying the Golden State Warriors and blowing them out by 25, 30 points. I mean, we dealt with that in a couple of losses to Houston. Minnesota will give you a shot. It's just a matter of whether the Warriors have enough to take advantage offensively. And it was Jimmy Butler. You know, Butler had talked about, does Butler have, does he have that 40 bullet in the chamber? Jimmy Butler was nothing short of amazing. Butler finished with 33, played 43 minutes. So he's logging the minutes, and as we talked about, the quick turnaround for a guy 35 years of age, can you get this sort of game from Jimmy Butler in a pivotal now game 4, or did he leave it all out there? Did Jimmy Butler gave you everything he had to get that one victory to potentially push this series to 6 games? Cannot talk about this game without Jonathan Kuminga. If you ever listen to me, I've been a big Jonathan Kuminga fan, although I certainly don't begrudge Steve Kerr. Listen, Kerr is going to be a Hall of Famer, and the reason why he's one of the greatest coaches to ever do it is because he knows he knows his players much better than I do, as well as basketball, generally speaking. And so the Jonathan Kuminga situation was always sort of a head scratch. It was frustrating. And JK finally getting an opportunity. You could see that the worm had turned in the last game where he had the 18 points and he was efficient. And he talked about afterwards having confidence, and that clearly carried over where Jonathan Kuminga played one of his best games as a Golden State Warrior, certainly his best game of the postseason. He finished with 30 points in 36 minutes, 11 of 18 shooting. So the Golden State Warriors getting primarily the majority of their points from 2 guys, and then 34 points and 32% shooting from the rest of the team, including Buddy Hield. And Buddy was good. Buddy gave you the 14 points, but you need other players to step up. You cannot be this reliant on Jimmy Butler and Jonathan Kuminga, and especially with Jimmy Butler. And again, at age 35, can he do this again, playing, close to the entire game? I mean, he sat all but of 1 minute of the entire contest. 43 minutes logged by Jimmy Butler on the huge evening, the 7 rebounds to go along with the 7 assists. I do think, not to be critical of Butler, that would be ridiculous. I think towards the latter part of the game, there were stretches where Jimmy Butler didn't finish at the rim. I think there were key possessions late in the contest where Butler turned it over. There was a rash of plays where Butler made some errors. It's certainly not pointing a finger at him. You don't have an opportunity in this game if it's not for Butler. And this was, by the way, this is playoff Jimmy. We talk about the moniker playoff Jimmy. Well, there it is. This is what he does. I do think that, and not to be the attorney, the agent for Jonathan Kuminga, but I do think that looking for Kuminga late in the game and getting him even more involved, I think is something that they should consider going forward, because Jonathan Kuminga is showing that he can be the guy. We were talking all day long. We've been talking ever since the loss in game 2. Who's going to pick up the scoring slack? That's not Jimmy Butler. Is it going to be a collaborative effort from some of the youngsters? Is it going to be Moody? Is it going to be Pajki? Is it going to be GP2? The answer to those questions are an emphatic no. Moody disappeared again. Quentin Post is becoming a non-factor. And while Pajki continues to be very good defensively, he is giving you absolutely nothing on the offensive end. When it comes to Draymond Green, who fouled out, by the way, with 4:38 remaining in the game, and the Warriors down just 2. And then, of course, we know what happened. They took full advantage with Draymond out of the game. Draymond, I know you referred to Draymond's point total where he had just the 1 field goal and it was a layup in close. Draymond is, listen, anything you get from Draymond offensively, like in game 1 where he gave you the 4 threes. And I know that without Steph, everybody has to contribute. But for Draymond Green, if he does what it is that he does in terms of locking up Gobert, staying on Julius Randle, pestering and helping out as a help defender if Ant-Man gets a step or beats his man to the bucket, that's what you want out of Draymond Green. But he cannot, and I'll reiterate this, you cannot foul out. And Javier is right. You have to be available, especially when Steph, and you're already shorthanded, you can't foul out of the game. Were there some questionable calls? Did you need to review some? Certainly. Yes, but you can't, you have to be on the floor without Steph Curry, which is why going back to game 2, where he's on the verge of getting rung up with his second technical and thrown out of that contest, he just has to be smarter than that. This isn't I don't want to open up a show going after Draymond Green. It's just underlying his importance to this team. And with Steph out, now it's time for, Kendrick Perkins talked about this in the pregame show. It's time for Draymond to do something without Steph. Be the leader of this basketball team. Lead this team to a victory without Steph. Because there are a lot of people out there that are like, listen, you've been the benefactor of playing with the greatest team. If not you, it's the Michael Jordan Chicago Bulls back in the day with the Splash Brothers, Nick Iguodala and Kevin Durant, and that's how you made your mark. Well, this is an opportunity to lead a team without Steph. Lead a team where you're depleted, and you got to be available. And all the nonsense, you've got to put that away. And he's so vital to the success of that team. And he was doing a good job defensively, although Julius Randle did go out. Randle's just been, if you follow Julius Randle, the guy was terrible with Minnesota. It didn't fit after the big trade with Karl Anthony Towns. During the offseason, Minnesota went to the Western Conference Finals a year ago. That blockbuster trade because they didn't want to pay Cat. And so they bring in Julius Randle. He just was not on the same page with Anthony Edwards. And you could see that the team was complete chaos. And now I think a lot of it after the injuries, Julius Randle is this sort of Julius Randle, the triple-double, and has been very, very efficient. Yeah, Steph Curry potentially could come back for Game 6. I don't think he's going to play in this series. I think you have to think about beating the T-Wolves without Steph Curry. Now, look, here's why there's a level of optimism and why I think that the door is slightly ajar. Minnesota won this game by 5 points. They won it by 5 points. And the Warriors got basically all of their offense from 2 guys. Nothing from a Brandon Pajemski. You got 14 from Buddy Hield, but you're not getting anything from the likes of Draymond Green offensively, GP2 offensively, Moses Moody offensively, and Quentin Post, and they won this game by 5 points. My point in all of that is that this is a team that does not execute and turns the ball over. This is a team that plays sometimes like a much younger, inexperienced team, despite the fact that they're not. And they will give you opportunities. Minnesota should not scare you. Minnesota will give you a game. It's just a matter of whether the Warriors have enough firepower to take advantage. Do the Warriors have enough offense to score more than 100 points? They haven't scored more than 100 points in this series. And that's where this sort of begins and ends. Minnesota is not running away and hiding from you. In any of these victories, the Warriors cut that thing down to 7 last time out, as bad as they played. They didn't have a 3 through the first 2 quarters. You got to go back 18 years the last time the Warriors did that in a postseason game. And yet there they were with a lead. They led by as many as 7 in the second half. Minnesota's going to give you an opportunity. Minnesota should not scare you. This is not a team that is burying the Golden State Warriors and blowing them out by 25, 30 points. We dealt with that in a couple of losses to Houston. Minnesota will give you a shot. It's just a matter of whether the Warriors have enough to take advantage offensively. When Gobert came off the floor and they try and go small, that's when Jimmy Butler just attacked. And Jimmy Butler he was getting to the rim and he was either getting fouled or he was beating DiVincenzo like a drum. Listen, Butler was amazing. You don't have a shot without Jimmy Butler. This was playoff Jimmy Butler. But down the stretch, as Eric just mentioned, he blew some layups and he had some key turnovers. I just think in retrospect, now that maybe Jonathan Kuminga has created a little bit sense of security for the rest of the team, that Butler can now share that wealth, that Butler can look to get Kuminga involved late in the game. There was a lot of clear out, and understandably, they would go ISO with Jimmy, and you had Jonathan Kuminga standing in the corner, just clearing space so that Jimmy Butler could go to work. I think I'd just like to see Jonathan Kuminga get more involved. And Jimmy Butler has to feel confident in giving him the basketball down the stretch. Down the stretch, Butler was not good. Listen, the dude was gassed And you don't have a chance, once again, without Butler. But I don't think that we can talk about the totality of his game without mentioning some of the key turnovers down the stretch and missing shots. Not missing shots, just shots, but missing some bunnies in close.